The Basic Education Department is scrambling to find replacements for hundreds of Matric exam markers who've pulled out at the last minute. The second wave of COVID-19 has resulted in markers withdrawing either because they are ill or have been exposed to a positive person. Others have cited fear of being exposed. In Gauteng alone, close to 900 markers had to be replaced. In the Eastern Cape, 5% of the teachers withdrew by Wednesday. To discuss further, we are now joined via Skype by Mugwena Maluleke, who is the General Secretary of the South African Democratic Teachers Union, that is SABC. Good morning and welcome to the show. First of all, let's start off here. Are you able to give us an indication of how many markers have pulled out?
Good morning and thank you for from the reports that we have in different provinces, but cumulatively, it is that we might be having about 1,600 markers who have pulled out of the marking session before the marking session started, precisely because of a number of reasons that are not being shared at the moment by the Department of Education.
Okay, wait. I don't understand. A number of reasons that are not being shared. I thought that the department said that some of the people who have pulled out is because they fear exposure, and some have been in contact with people who are positive.
Well, that is in terms of the protocol states very clear that if you have been exposed, you shouldn't come. It also says that if you don't feel well, you shouldn't come. So that is another reason. But the other reasons that the teachers have put in black and white has not been shared as yet, because we don't know exactly whether all this thing is as a result of the second wave or it is maybe because of other things that we don't know. However, what is important is that the department has been able to go back to the substitute list and started recruiting those particular teachers who have also applied on time and have always been approved so that they can be standby. So it's not all the reasons that are being shared with us, because some of the reasons might be confidential from the teacher's perspective when they are withdrawing, and it's a general assumption that we are making that it is because of the second wave, but that's not the only reason.
Okay, so what could some of those other reasons be?
Well, when I spoke to a few teachers this morning, some of them were citing the fact that they were not admitted in the centers where there is going to be residents, and therefore they were fearing to use public transport. Some of them were citing the issues of not having enough cash for them to be able to be committing on a daily basis to go to the marking centers. So yes, some are prepared to state the reason. Some are just saying it's private, and we respect that. That if it is private, it's private.
Okay. Do you know whether at all there's a call from teachers that, considering that they would be marking, of course, during this particular pandemic, and there are fears and anxieties, that they would like to receive a health risk allowance?
Well, from all the other teacher unions that are recognized in education, being the five of us, we have not received such a request, we have not received such demand. As we speak now, I have been on call with the monitors from SABC, and they are monitoring in Gauteng and Limpopo and everywhere else. They have not received any demand of some sort in terms of danger allowances around that, because you would remember that this is a voluntary service, and we always appreciate the teachers to really be volunteering to serve our nation and to ensure that we send a message of hope to the students that they will receive their results. So therefore, that type of message we don't have. It might be coming from these other unions that are not recognized in education for purposes of recruitment. And we think it's very irresponsible when we are dealing with a sensitive matter like this, because we need to always instill hope and bring hope and support the teachers who are really sacrificing to be in these particular centers at this particular point in time. So clearly it is that from the five unions that are recognized in education, we don't have that kind of a call.
Okay, and then from the information that you have, are you certain whether or not the department has been able to replace all of those markers who have pulled out?
Yeah, I can only respond because I have a meeting. I have a call this morning with the DG, where I wanted to find out exactly what is this scrambling about. And then he had indicated to me there's no crisis. They have been able to replace all the markers that are required, but also is that the senior markers who are there are already doing the work whilst they are still training and orientating the other substitute markers, because every day before marking there is an orientation, there's a workshop that takes on board what might have happened yesterday in terms of the marking and what is it that they need to be concentrating on. So those type of things are being addressed, and clearly it is that there is no plan that is 100% perfect, and continuously there will be those particular glitches there, and there is a learning curve. First time we mark under this particular cloud of the pandemic, the DG was saying to me he is satisfied. He has walked through all the centers in the country, and then the marking is proceeding.
Okay, can you just explain to us then the different models that are being used? I think I heard you say earlier on that there are some teachers who pulled out because they couldn't find residents.
Oh yeah. What happened is that normally you would have hostel schools being utilized to house the teachers to mark. So we call that residence marking. But you also have the walk-ins where they are traveling on a daily basis to and from the marking centers. So those teachers who have not been allocated to the boarding schools where they are then going to be accommodated, they are forming part of the bigger force that is traveling on a daily basis from home to the marking center, and that has always been a bit of a risk if they don't use their own car. They're using the public transport because therefore they might be exposed in the taxis, and that also had led them to withdraw on the basis that they don't have the necessary cash for them to be able to pay on a daily basis to travel to and fro the marking centers. So the models is that there will be those who are accommodated and there will be those that are not accommodated. And in this year, because of the pandemic, but also because of the increase in the marking centers, you have got a number of markers who are not in the residence, but they're traveling on a daily basis.
And from the conversation that you had with the DG, was there any indication whatsoever that we will be able to meet that January 22nd deadline to have all the marking completed?
Well, I tried to get the answer from the DG around that, and then from my experience as a teacher and as a principal is that the date of the 22nd being put there was a conservative date, and therefore you do everything possible to ensure that you are able to meet that particular date. But because the uncertainty that is caused by the pandemic, the DG himself can commit that yes, on the 22nd they would want to have finished and be able to pronounce the result or the outcome of the results. However, we know that anything can happen, and therefore we should be able to say to the parents and the learners, a day of delay or 2 days of delay is not a train smash. Nobody has died, as long as we save their lives and then we have got quality and the credible results.
And also that those results would be released in February.
Well, I will have to check if my date still says that they will be released in February, as it was indicated before. So it was going to be the 4th of February. So yeah, I will have to verify if, according to Mwalusi, they shall have been able to do the standardization as required and then being able to certify at that time. But the date is still stated in the protocol as indicated to be February. But of course, it's going to be depending on a number of other issues that needs to be addressed. But yeah, let's be hopeful that it can be the date that has been set by the minister.
Sure. And now that you've actually mentioned Umalusi, do you, this is now speaking as the teachers union, do you believe at all that when Umalusi looks at the credibility of these of the Matric paper, when they take into consideration the 2 papers that have been leaked, and remember that there was that court challenge, of course, which you were successful in, that it could have an impact on the release of the Matric results if Umalusi stands by their argument just before even the court application that they believe that there could have been an impact in the credibility of the Matric papers?
Well, thanks for the question, and I can clarify it in this way. It is that the mere fact that that particular position of Umalusi was found to be unlawful, unreasonable, and therefore it was not substantiated. What Mwalusi was instructed by the court is that you have got to go and moderate and evaluate what is available, and then be able to certify those learners that have not had not had access to the leaked paper, and therefore those particular learners' results must then be based on the credibility that they did not have access, and therefore you need to certify them. And those that you suspect, and then you have evidence now that they have had access to the leaked paper, you put them aside so that they don't cloud the evaluation and the assessment and the certification of the rest of the results. So the credibility, therefore, it is not something that must be assumed. It's a measurable instrument, and therefore it must be based on the fact that this particular learner's results are credible on the basis that he or she did not have access to the leaked paper. And then the others will be dealt with separately, and clearly they will not be certified because the investigation shall still be continuing.
Okay, so this then means that the Umalusi can go ahead and certify the outcomes of the Matric exams, and then the results of those other pupils who could have been affected by this leak. Those results will then be insulated and put aside up until the investigation is completed.
Yes, correct. That's what Umalusis always do on an annual basis. If there is a suspicion, or we as the markers, we are able to detect that now there's a suspicion that this particular center might have done something that is not right, those scripts are put aside, and Umalusi will then be able to assess and evaluate and investigate, but obviously certify the rest of the results. So the answer is yes. They will have to certify according to the court and according to the act. They have got to certify those that are credible and valid, and then they must retain and withhold the results of the students who might be suspected to have been involved in the leakage of these particular papers.
Okay, and what's the last update that you received with regards to that investigation?
Well, we haven't received any update. We have agreed with the DG that we'll have got a weekly meeting, maybe this Saturday, which is tomorrow. If I'm not wrong, I'm confused because I've been working throughout the holiday. I'm not even sure whether it's Friday.
Saturday is tomorrow.
So basically, is that tomorrow or Sunday we'll have a meeting with the DG, and therefore they will then be taking us through the investigation as well as what is happening in the marking centers.
Okay, then thank you so much. That is SATU General Secretary Mugwena Maluleke. Really appreciate your time.